Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's up, everybody? Before we get going, I wanted to let everybody know that I am looking into potentially hosting Mike Christopherson and Pedro De La Torre's E-Prom class here in the Twin Cities, Minnesota area. So if you're in the Midwest or you've been looking to take this class, they've been teaching it around the country and at Vision. It was probably one of the most talked about classes at Vision recently in Kansas City. If you've been looking to take this class and you want to swing up here to the Midwest, late spring, early summer, we don't have dates in place just yet. Right now, I'm just looking to see how many people would be interested. And if we can get enough attendees that are interested in coming to the class, we can get this set up. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. Whether that be Facebook Messenger or email, which I will include in the show notes of this episode. You can just let me know, hey, I am interested, or maybe you want to know some more details about the class. I can help you out with that. You can also check out episode number 71 of this podcast. I had Mike and Pedro on to explain exactly what they teach in this class. And of course, that was a year ago. They've advanced the class even since then. So anyways, with that out of the way, let's get into the episode. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Joining me on the show this week is Daryll Caughron. Daryll is a trainer and technician out of Tennessee. He's been on the show before. We hung out at Vision. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about this week is the training at Vision, some of the classes we took, which ones we liked, which ones we didn't, how it could have been better. We're going to talk case studies with some broken vehicles, the diagnostic method, process that we take into these sort of things. We'll talk about HP tuners a little bit, all kinds of stuff. This is a great conversation. We just flew through 2 hours because Daryll is a very passionate person in this industry. It's easy to tell, and I like talking to those kinds of people. So with that out of the way, let's jump right in. Hey, you in your van or truck?
I'm actually out in the truck. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm outside, so I don't have to be super quiet.
Oh, okay. Well, the acoustics are perfect. And what is that, like a Chevy truck or something?
It's Ram 1500 Eco Diesel.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. It's a work vehicle. I just picked it up yesterday. Drove it back from Ohio.
Oh, okay. So you're just getting to know the thing. Mm. What is the Eco Diesel? What's the
3-liter V6 turbo diesel in a 1500 truck.
Okay.
It runs pretty good.
Yeah.
Range I get on the way down, get a little over 500 miles out of a tank of fuel, about 22 miles a gallon average.
That's not bad at all.
It runs good. It's got 160,000 miles on it right now. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, the way gas is right now, you can get a truck with 22 miles a gallon. That's not bad at all. Although I don't even know, what are diesel prices right now where you're at? Because I don't even pay attention to diesel.
Around like mid 4s up to just over 5 on the way back.
Okay.
It was about a quarter tank. Filling up about a quarter tank's a little over $100.
Gotcha.
That's right at 20, a little over 20 gallon.
Okay.
At a quarter tank.
Yeah, it's damn near $100 to fill up my F-150, and that thing does not get 22 miles to the gallon. So.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely make that work.
Right. I'm loving the little Transit Connect though that I roll around in most of the time for work and stuff though, because that is closer. I want to say, depending on how much freeway driving I do, I'll get close to 25 in that.
and that's not bad at all for a work van.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's gutless,
I think,
but
yeah, that wasn't a powerhouse. They didn't put good cams in those.
no,
They're not made to go fast.
It's not. They're not even phased or anything. It's just a straight cam in that one, and you get what you get.
Yeah, you're lucky you got a throttle body with that one too.
Right?
Like, we don't need that. Oh, I might want that.
Yeah, I was thinking about upgrading or something like that, but because it's getting up there in miles, it's got, I want to say, creeping up on like 230, but I mean, the thing's still in nice shape. I had the rocker panels fixed because they were all rusted out, but I knew a guy that did body work, and he put some aluminum panels on there for me. It looks super nice. Like, sprayed them with this like rhino liner stuff, and it actually looks pretty slick. And I was like, well, there's really nothing else wrong with this van. Of course, I say that, and it's gonna break down on me tomorrow. But I mean, I can't beat it for what I'm doing.
I mean, as long as it works for you and doesn't let you down, then that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's important stuff to try to get. Like, this being a work vehicle, I don't know how. Hopefully, it'll turn out pretty good. It's at 17 with 160,000 miles on it.
Okay.
But my daily had been my 07 Odyssey. The thing's got 260 on it.
Okay.
Jump in and go. Nothing to worry about.
Sure. Yeah. I think Tommy drives a Odyssey around to do his mobile stuff too. So
great vehicles.
Imagine you can just pack all your stuff in there if you fold the seats down and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. I got my Milwaukee pack out stuff in there, and all my tools, tool bag, all my electrical repair stuff, my diag cases, everything. So just goes.
I got to get some of those Milwaukee packouts. I see a lot of people that are using them when they're going around to different shops and stuff. That looks like a slick setup.
Yeah, they are nice. They were it was a chunk of money buying them, but it was the setup I got. It works pretty nice.
Can you get like inserts for them? Like, let's say I wanted to have one and just like stack laptops in it or something like that, or can you custom make something like that?
I imagine you could get like your own phone. I haven't seen any like foam blocks to set in.
Okay.
But if you have something like a hot knife setup, you could make that really easy, or the pick and pluck foam kits for Pelican cases. I'm sure you can make those work.
I think that's what I'm probably thinking of, because I thought I had saw somebody that had a nice setup where they had several laptops and they were just in these little slots in foam in this case. I was like, oh man, because I'm using like a backpack right now and stuff, and it works, but I'd like to be a little bit more professional, a little bit more protected for my equipment, you know.
Oh, I gotta keep all this stuff in good shape.
Yeah.
I carry my main go-to tools. I carry with me are my Think Tool S10, my old Veris Edge, my Diag laptop, couple of J25 34 interfaces, MDI2, Tech 2, and the old laptop with XP and TIS 2000 on it. HP tuners goes everywhere with me too.
Nice.
This Forescan, that 50, the USB cable for it. I use it a lot. It comes in super handy. I got everything in a couple bags mainly, but all my big stuff goes in the pack outs. Okay.
Yeah, I'm finding more and more uses for the HP tuner setup, and not just like, obviously people do the tuning side of things, but it's pretty versatile especially for GM stuff. That's where I find myself using it all the time. And this was not my idea that I came up with. This is learning from other people, but you could pull all of the tables and stuff, which I knew you could. You could look at all the ignition timing and the fuel maps and all that stuff, but to actually look at it and learn how the engine strategy is applied to the vehicle at different times and what it's doing at different times and the intentions of the computer under certain circumstances. That's huge to have an insight like that. Even if you don't even use the HP tuners to change anything, you're learning about the strategy of that module. I'll tell you what, I've learned so much about the GM 6L80 strategy in the Chevy trucks and stuff over the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 months. It's crazy. I never knew even close to that about a transmission strategy before, but you can see it all. You can see all the tables.
Speaking of the 6L80, just so you brought it up, and HP, have you done any of the downloads from the Tuning School's website with the preset parameter list? I
have not. I've messed around with a few of them myself, but I haven't downloaded anything.
They have. I bought from the Tuning Schools the Ford and GM transmission tuning books.
Okay.
And the goal is to make some tunes for those trans packages and market them around here. I do a lot of transmission programming, but they all have the reasons for failure. And the goal is to improve on that software that's already written to make these trans last longer and use that as an upsell. Not only am I coming in and programming this new 6L80, but hey, I got something here that I've proven to give it longer life and help the shift feel. Would that be something you'd be interested in? And that's done as a side program. It takes several steps. It'll take several steps to finalize writing the values in, because right now I've been playing around with some vehicles with mileage on them. So that file is going to behave, or those settings are going to behave a little bit differently than a brand new unit would, where all the tolerances are tighter, everything's fresh, and you wouldn't use the exact same settings. So having a use like I'm mainly focusing on the Ford 6R 180 right now.
Okay.
Dialing one in to get it shifting good and get rid of a 3-4 slip he was having, and doing what the Tuning School book calls a towing tune. It's not very aggressive, but it's just quick, smooth shifts, and it gets the gear engaged and then goes. So no slip, no trans heat up. It makes the trans last a lot longer, material-wise, service-wise, everything's better.
Yeah, it's crazy what you can do with software. It's just absolutely nuts. Or how badly you can screw something up, or how you can fix something and increase the life of a $3,000 transmission. The 6L80s and 90s, it's that torque converter, and I had no idea because I didn't own one. I didn't drive it around, but they go into lockup. And it depends on the model. Like a Yukon might be different than a Silverado, but some of them are as early as 9 miles an hour in first gear. They'll go into lockup for the torque converter. And if you would have told me that, I'd be like, no way. There's no way it does it at 9 miles an hour in first gear. What would be the point? But it does, and it just goes up from there. Second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. It's always applying that torque converter clutch. And so the thing shells eventually, just blows up, goes throughout the transmission and wipes out everything else. And that's what all these guys are fixing it for. And so, I imagine that software package, or if they have one for that, might be adjusting something like that.
On the Tuning School website, if you go down to the bottom, there is a link for, I think it's called course downloads. You don't have to have any purchases from them to get the downloads. Basically, the download contains some stock files and some preset lists like transmission data parameters, engine data parameters, and you're going to save those. And then when you open HP Tuners, you can automatically select that parameter list. And it's just like pulling up a custom data list that you've saved on any scan tool. You bring those up, and it's got those all right there on the side. It's already recording. And you can select from those to bring into a graph format, whatever you want. It's pretty cool to have that already done for you. And all you got to do is download it and save it.
For sure, that's awesome. I will definitely check that out, because I haven't. I had somebody else recommend that to me. Maybe it was you. but somebody told me about that they had a lot of cool stuff there.
It doesn't cost that part doesn't cost anything, so free's always a good price on anything.
Yeah. Well, just that cable. I don't know, what is it, like $400 or whatever. You can do a lot of stuff without even paying tokens for actually updating stuff. Like I said, just learning and using the scan tool side of things. That fuel trim table that you can set up to be like the eScan. You can do the Jeep. You can change the. I don't know if it's a gear ratio and the tire size or both. You do that free on the
Jeep
scanner side.
Yeah, a lot of like Jeeps and Dodges, or a lot of crosser products. You can do that function right within the VCM scanner, and it doesn't cost anything. It's really quick. Now, speaking of that, I needed to do it on a Jeep Commander, like an '07 Jeep Commander here recently. You could not do it through HP tuners. Reason being that generally looks for it in the ECM or like the cluster. But this vehicle had it stored in the FCM or the TIPM, BCM, the same module. So it was in a different location, and so it never pulled it up. Ended up using Alpha OBD and writing that custom tire size. And then I found it later, after I found it in the FCM, I found that function in the top down or the think tool in that same module. But at that point, I had already had it done.
Okay.
What was interesting is putting that tire size in millimeters, which is what it's originally written as. So you got to calculate it out the tire diameter. The tire diameter in millimeters.
Yeah. I do remember doing a conversion like that at one point or another to get it to millimeters. So, when I remembered, I don't remember what tool I was using. Probably a launcher, Nautel, and I was trying to do that tire change in the Jeep, and it wouldn't let me select the aftermarket size that they had equipped on this Jeep through the scan tool, because I think it only gave you certain options, or you can only punch in certain options through the tool. But then through the HP tuners, I don't know if it's any size that you want, but you could definitely go with the aftermarket size, and it worked like a charm.
Yeah, I did notice after putting that custom size in, because it wasn't an option, or it wasn't a factory option size. I tried with IM608, and what it had was a list of OE tire sizes that it had options. Well, this wasn't any of those, and even by converting the math, they still were like 2.5 inches off from what this actually was, so it wouldn't have been anywhere accurate, and that's what the guy was after. So he had also done it was a 2-wheel drive, but he had it lifted and larger tires on the 2-wheel drive, which that really makes sense to me. But he had a different gear ratio, so we needed to change that, and his tire size was different. So, but I got straightened out with Alpha OBD.
Nice. I have yet to get that one. I've heard people talking about it, though. It's pretty handy with Chrysler stuff.
I've heard people say a lot of good things about it on the Android side. I have it on the Windows, and I just learned to use it, and it works pretty good.
Okay.
I do like the interface. I just don't have an Android tablet sitting around that I could install it on. Otherwise, I might just buy one of those and an OBD Link MX adapter just to have. But right now, using it with the 4Scan cable and the laptop.
Okay. Well, we were both at Vision a few weeks ago here. What'd you think of Vision? How'd you like your classes?
Oh, Vision was a blast. This was the first time I'd gotten to go. I'd wanted to go for several years. Finally had an opportunity to go. Sat in some good classes and really enjoyed it. Got to meet a lot of people for the first time, and also a lot of people for the second time after meeting them at AST back in September last year. I had a great time. Got a lot out of it. Lot that I took home and want to start using or try to use right away. some I'm still going back to the books and reabsorbing, just to try to stay fresh, because it was a lot of information in 4 days worth of time.
Right? Yeah. There's no way you can lock all of that in the first time around.
No.
What classes did you take, or what ones were your favorites?
I took that Thursday. I took Bernie Thompson's all-day class, which was phenomenal. That was some good stuff.
Yeah, talk about not being able to absorb all the information.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some coffee. I think I had to go get an energy drink or something at break to to keep firing. But that was a really good class. I enjoyed it. I was glad I took it. On that Friday, I took the EPROM class that Pedro and Mike Christopherson did. That was a good one. That was probably my favorite class. I feel like I got more out of it than anything else in the entire event, because that was, to me, that was the area that I needed the most information I needed to grow the most in. So that's why I took it. Sure. On Saturday morning, it was a transmission class that was held at the Hilton Garden Inn next door to it, and that was a smaller class, and it was okay. It wasn't quite what I expected. It was about, the material would have been good, but the presentation was just, it could have been executed a lot better.
Okay.
But the material is about, when things that show up as transmission concerns, but they're really caused by other things. And the book itself, like the PDF, was over 600 or like the PowerPoint slide was over 650 slides. Damn. And trying to do it in 3 hours time. It was just like, it was like speed dating, just bam, 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 bam. And there's no way to cover that much ground in that little time and have, any kind of, in-depth content. It was all surface level, and there was so much of it that just got, read a couple words on the slide, go forward, where there were some what would have been really good case studies, mm-hmm. and that there could have been a lot taken out of it, but it just got skimmed over so fast. And that was kind of a disappointment. Like there was even one in there from one that Bernie Thompson did. I believe it was on a Chevrolet Duramax truck, and had some communication codes, some shifting problems, just a whole list of issues. And there was it came down to the fact that there was some dents in the torque converter, because the turbine speed sensor reads off of the stamped ridges on the torque converter housing. Oh, no. And the converter had at some point been dropped, and one of them was dented in, and it caused a whole list of issues, and it just got skimmed through so fast. It was probably 10, 15 slides, and it was like a minute long is how much time he spent on it. It was, wow. That was disappointing.
For sure.
So that one could have been better.
When you do those presentations to people, after at least for me, after I've done enough of them to students anyways, I realize how long, and drag out is not the right way to put it, but to expand on what you're talking about. Like, you can make, something that's maybe 10 slides, and that's an hour and a half of going through stuff, because you can break it down, talk about the systems, go in depth, give people references, things like that. And you can take just one broken car and get a ton of value out of it. Because I've been guilty of the same thing, just blasting through stuff just so fast because I wanted to try to cover everything. And sometimes it's better to focus on one specific thing rather than trying to hit every single point that you wanted to hit.
Yeah, you take that, you have a mental mindset of trying to cover everything, and then the hindsight is from the people in front of you, they felt like you covered nothing, because everything was just bam, bam, too much, too little, too fast. that class was a very, very big missed opportunity. That material was, to try to cover that much ground that little time. That was not it. That would have been more like an 8 hour class, then you would have probably got halfway through it, kind of thing.
Okay.
But then Saturday afternoon, took Thornton's class. That was a really good class. That was the first time I got to meet him. Enjoyed it.
What was he teaching in that one?
Oh, what was it?
Because I did a Sunday morning one with the mechanical engine diagnosis with like vacuum transducers and stuff.
I'd have to look. I don't remember what what the class title actually was.
Okay. I mean,
but I do remember
by John is
several,
awesome.
Yeah, it's never going to be a disappointment. I've watched him online, but it's the first time I've actually got to sit in an in-person class of his, and it was really, really good. Then Saturday morning had a class put on by Garage Gurus. Is on I think network testing. There was some good stuff in there on like on most bus. Like that type of system, auto. That was a good take. That's probably the best takeaway from it. But I think the guy that was doing it kind of gave me the impression that he worked at a Chevrolet dealership many, many years ago, and the last time he worked on a Chevrolet, it was still Class 2 single wire network.
Okay.
And here he is trying to teach a class about Ken networks and most, and it was he wasn't the right person for that one, but
sure.
The material was there, but the cutoff what was I saying, the downside of that was the presenter. Not to dog him. I don't like to dog anybody, but I just don't think he was prepared for that class.
Yeah,
as much as he should have been.
Well, I think it's actually important, for anybody that goes to one of these things to give honest feedback like that. So, next year or, Vision or the presenter or the companies or whatever can really look at it and say, okay, well, how can we make this better for the people that are attending? Because it's not cheap. You're taking, time where you could be making money. You're paying to go there. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's an expense. Like, you expect the best. You expect to have really good value for the dollars that you're putting out there, and then not making while you're there. And so I think some honest critique of some of the classes is really, really important. I talked to a few of the people that I took classes from, and hey, here's what I liked, and here's what could have been better about it, because I would want to know that if it was me up there. Like, I want some honest feedback. Like, if anybody was in Tech Talks and watched my little half-hour blurb, tell me what was wrong. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that one thing that kind of stood out that kind of made me kind of think that way. Somebody had, or the topic of cross secure gateway stuff came up, and he had he tried to blurt out some stuff about how auto-auth works and the facts about it, and he got them all wrong. Said it has to go through Snap-on, and you got to pay Snap-on to do it, and it's like $100, and no, and, it's like red light. Let's back up.
Right.
But we got that straightened out, and the class was pretty good. There was some good discussion. So the best part I took away from it was the information on the most bus and how it worked, and there was and it works out pretty neat, because just like about a week or so after taking that class, transmission shop around here called me to they're worried that they screwed something up. They flashed a TCM or a transmission on a 17, I think it was a 17 Silverado. And then after they were done, the radio, the display, there was no display, no sound, nothing, and they were worried they screwed something up. But I looked it up, and there's a TSB that goes back for GM, that has that model year in it. Several vehicles for um, basically HMIs, the human machine interface failures on the most bus, and you'll have one or two symptoms. You either have no display, no sound, or you have no display and sound, and they're usually caused by a failed HMI.
Okay.
And that was a common problem. I told them, look, it's nothing you did. You didn't do anything wrong. The networks are completely separate. The only thing that connects them is a gateway, but what you did has nothing to do with what's wrong with this vehicle right now.
Right.
So that gave him some a little bit of assurance, and he calmed down. But he just called me, freaking out.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
What'd I do?
We've all been in that situation where you just happen to be working on a car when something completely unrelated fails or breaks. Like the odds are such that that's going to happen to you if you're in this field long enough. And then of course you're wondering, at least for me, I'm like, oh, what did I do? What did I break? How did I screw up that part when I'm working on this part of the car? But sometimes that happens.
It's like an Urkel moment. Did I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't me. I didn't do it.
Sometimes I was just like, how could I have broken that? Like, what could I have possibly have done to broken that component? And of course, there's times where, I've done something weird and it did break something else. And so that's why it's in my head that I'm trying to just connect the dots. Like, what part was I messing with that broke this part? But sometimes that's just the way it works with used cars. These transmission shops, I'll tell you, so I go in and do a lot of programming, but they have me do diagnostics too. And the setup that I kind of have is a lot like a number of other diagnostic guys. Like I think Eric Ziegler's got a whole class titled this, where I'm just trying to figure out, is it in the transmission or is it electronic computer related? That's my goal. But once it's like in the transmission, mechanically, hydraulically, I am no longer the expert on that for the most things. I don't rebuild transmissions. I've rebuilt one in my life. I know the components and I can read about the components, but I'm not an expert like these guys. Well, they'll want me to tell them, why this clutch is not working correctly or why the pressure is not correct in this one spot. And once I get past the electrical portion, I'm just like, I don't know, dude, you got to tear this apart and start looking at it, because I don't know the hydraulic circuitry to this thing and all the ins and outs of this particular transmission. So I've had some instances where, I'm like, it's not electric. It's not a computer. It's on the ball is in your court now, transmission guy. Figure it out. But it's not like an engine, right? I know an engine. I know what's going on inside of an engine. Transmission, it can be a little different.
And part of me wants to say you would think that transmission shops, since they're specialized in that one part of the car, that's all they do,
right,
that they would have a much better grasp of this. But
I'll tell you what it is.
So many variables, so many types, and
yep. I'll tell you what it is, because this is the number one scenario that I get involved with. They've already rebuilt the transmission, and then there's a problem, and so whether it be pride or just not wanting to deal with it, they don't want to accept the fact that there could still be a mechanical problem. So they are dead set on it is a computer or electrical problem. So that's when I get called in. So that's kind of where it is, because I'll be like, yeah, it's in the tranny. They're like, no, I air checked everything. We went through the valve body. It's got the new this and the new that. I'm like, it's not a computer. It's not electric. Well, what is it? I'm like, yeah, and I don't know the whole valve body or circuitry in that, and I don't have the time to learn it on this vehicle. You need to tear it apart. So that's kind of where it's at. And it hasn't been a big issue, but I do feel strange. Like, I like being able to give precise answers, and that's an area where I would say I'm kind of lacking once it gets to the hydraulic portion of transmissions, giving a precise answer without tearing it down,
Yeah, another one recently was a guy had installed his own, it was a 2013, I believe, EcoBoost F-150, and he put a valve body in it, and it came from this company. It had been a rebuilt valve body, and supposedly everything was good to go. He had he was worried to death that he had done something wrong during install, but he called me to write, program it. So I wrote the solenoid strategy, and once we got that in, took it for a drive, and it would slam into gear really hard. Like as soon as you leave park, just bam, just reverse drive. It's pretty harsh, and didn't think that felt right. Even after clearing the adaptive tables, and I took screenshots of what the numbers were before, and then what numbers wrote into it, and they matched what was on the valve body itself. And went for a drive in that first gear to second gear slant or gear change was rock solid. Just there was no modulation, nothing. It just bam.
Yeah.
And like that didn't feel all right. But all the other gears were fine. But coming back down the 2-1, it was same way.
Okay.
It was just really hard. Or no, it was like 3-2 with slam. So something to do with going to second gear just wasn't right. And it didn't have this problem before with the old valve body. It was replaced due to it would get into fourth and then it wouldn't shift anymore. But now it had all the gears, but it just had that harsh engagement. So he was worried, well, it could be something in the programming that wasn't right. No, I mean, everything's straight from Ford. So I double checked, and we looked at some data and monitored some values on the test drive, and everything looked right. I said, look, something's wrong with that valve body. You can either, drop it and inspect for, something not being right, but something either happened, something's off with the install or something's wrong with the valve body. And you're going to be pulling it off anyway. So see if the company can, warranty out you a new one since you just got this. And sure enough, they sent him another one. They said, look, if this doesn't fix it, you'll just have to have a whole unit. Like, okay. I didn't have that issue before, so he got the new one in, and I went out on Monday and wrote that one same way I did the other one. Perfect. It was butter smooth, and all the engagements were fine. He was tickled. He was very, very happy.
Nice.
He's glad to know he didn't need a whole transmission. So
yeah,
he's back to work running in that thing.
Dude, have you done?
That one came out good.
That's good. Have you done the Nissans, the CVTs? When you get a new one, they come with a CD, right? And I have Consult, and I've done it that way. I have a little CD drive that connects to my laptop, and I'll do that. But the Autel will snap a picture of the QR code.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, that is slick. I did that the first time the other day, right? Because I had Consult. I just been doing it with the Consult software, and sometimes they needed an actual software update, and then I'm kind of in there anyways. But if they don't need the software update and it just needs the, what do they call that, the IP something data?
Yeah, it's IP characterization.
Yeah.
Right IP characterization.
But that the tablet, the Autel tablet itself, snaps a picture of the QR code that's either on the CD or on the range sensor. And I will tell you, if it's on the range sensor, you can't get your Autel tablet close enough to get the picture, so you have to take a picture with your iPhone and then bring it up to the Autel. But anyways, it's slick. I think that's cool that they figure that out. Yeah,
and that's once I learned that feature was there. I learned about it from somebody else. Like, you got to be kidding me! There's no way that's there. Right. It can't be that simple.
Yeah,
but no, it's right there under hot functions and transmission, and like, holy cow.
The other thing you can do, you can punch it in manually. So if for whatever reason you can just snap it with your iPhone, and your iPhone will decode it. It'll pull out the data from the QR code, and then you can sit there and punch it in manually. I mean, I guess I'd rather do it with a CD drive at that point, but you got options just in case,
I've used the Notes app to convert that QR code into that digital or that numerical file for like coding on stuff like Mercedes headlights and some other stuff before as well.
Okay.
That's been a while since I had to do that. I learned that trick from somebody else too. But I noticed I've been waiting on the next Nissan I get to do that. The Think tool has the right IP characterization functions as well. You have a top done, right?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as yours. It's a Phoenix Plus.
So yours should have that for the Nissan stuff as well. And I don't. I've talked with Derek at Think Car, and he was telling me that this one doesn't do the image, but I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, it's got a camera on it.
Yeah, it's got the camera, and I don't know if I'm just curious to see if there's actually a step in that. Maybe somebody told him wrong. I'm gonna find out. I'm dying to get another Nissan CVT. It's bound to happen. There's
yeah, the odds are in your favor. There's going to be another one coming.
Yeah, there for a long time. I use Consult 3. I do the 1-day license to it, and roll that, and then my program in charge is it covers that. But since being able to finding that I can do it with the 608, it's just made everything so much easier. I mean, it's literally like a 5-10 minute process. It takes just as long to do the pre-scan as it does to write that file and do the shifter sequence and erase the data and be done. There was one day I went to the shop. I had a 2017, 2018 I think a Malibu PCM to flash. And so I had SPS2 going, and while I had that going, I walked over to I think a Rogue or it may have been a Pathfinder. But in the time on SPS2, I hit start or the start programming. Went over to the Nissan and had that CVT done, and then back to the GM laptop, and it wasn't finished yet. So that was a nice one.
That's where you can really get productive, the 2 or the 3 for 1s or whatever. And just getting into that kind of flow state where the times for everything, how long this is going to take. Like when I do GM programming, because I do a lot of it, I'll get the TLC going, and it's the point where you're in the web browser that pulls up and it says launch TechLine Connect. And then you hit yes on your computer, and then it takes a while to boot up, check for updates, open up the page, connect to the vehicle. So then after I do that, I'll go hook up my battery maintainer to the vehicle while it's doing that. And then about the time I get back to the laptop, it's ready to actually connect to the vehicle. But that's just one of those things. You do it enough times, you're like, why am I standing here? I could be, utilizing this time. I guess it's like a flat rate mindset that I had as a tech, where I'm just like, I want to utilize every single minute of the day to be productive.
Right.
But you figure that stuff out as you go.
What I've started doing on, as for GM on TechLine Connect, instead of opening it, let me turn this brightness down here. Instead of waiting until I'm in the web browser to launch it and let it check for updates, then I just launch the desktop icon, and if there are any updates, it'll install them then, and it seems to be more solid at not causing issues during the update process.
Okay, that's good to know, because there's plenty of those. There's plenty of updates on that thing.
Yeah, I usually do that on Monday mornings before anything, or if I haven't used it in a while, let's say it's been 4 or 5 days, just fire it up in the morning and let it check for updates, and then go do what I have to. It seemed to work out a little bit better.
I have a micropod for Chrysler stuff, and that's been updating quite a bit recently as well. And that's actually on the firmware on the little device that you plug into the car. And so generally I would get to the car that I was going to program, and then it would update. But I found I can plug the micropod into my Ford Transit, and of course it's not going to connect to a Ford Transit, but it'll connect to the point where it will update. And so I'll update the pod as I'm driving to the shop that I'm going to go use it to program. Save myself a couple minutes.
That's smart. Yeah,
I didn't
that's
know if it was
definitely
gonna work,
definitely.
but I plugged it in. And it was like updating, and then it's like, I don't know what vehicle this is, dude. What do you got me plugged into? But
Something's broke. Something's broke.
right. Yeah, all that stuff. Keep it up on all the updates and the technology stuff. It's something else.
Yeah, it's enough to keep you busy, and it's just part of the industry, and it's part of the whirlwind. So it's a something you got to do. You got to know how to keep your equipment up to date and keep everything um, working.
Yeah, people that can adapt are and are going to be very successful in this field. That's the new thing where I don't know that it was always so much the case. I mean, cars have always changed, but you could kind of get by on some basic knowledge. I feel like easily back in the day, some mechanical aptitude and things like that, whereas now you want to be really successful, like you got to be able to pivot very quickly and learn new things and take on new stuff all the time. And if you can, then you're gonna do very well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but you gotta be willing to do it and put the effort in. And
Mm-hmm.
some people are just if you know the people, if you met a lot of the people that I have, I just don't think they have that drive. They want everything as easy as possible and don't bother me with anything. It needs to do it itself. And like, oh,
Yep. Yeah, I want to come into my job and I want to do the same thing that I did yesterday, and then
no,
tomorrow I want to do
not
that
me,
same thing again.
not me. If I want to do that, I go work in a factory. No,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, the monotonous, repetitive work. No, thank you.
I like having new challenges every day. I think it makes you a better person,
Yeah.
and it really builds your skill set. You know, going into something blind, um, you know, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, and then dealing with whatever happens. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had a good couple good vehicles here lately that have, you know, I went into it expecting something drastic because of what I was told. You know, it's one of those problem vehicles where, you know, Joe Jim Bob down here checked it out 6 months ago, and he's had it, and this thing ain't running a year. Well, it takes like 5 minutes to figure out what was wrong with it. So, like, how do you miss that? Those kind of things. I've had a few of those, and not bragging on me. I don't want to sound that way. I'm not that type of person, but it just ended up being a something fairly simple that got overlooked. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple shops where I want to change the name in my phone to what their actual business is, to Shotgun, because
Yep.
that's what they tend to do. I mean, when they call me, they're going down the list of parts they replaced on this, and like that's
Yep.
going to make any difference about my diagnostic routine? It's not going to change anything. Yeah, a car is broke. You can't figure it out. Okay, I'm coming.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's there's no plan or strategy into you figuring out what's wrong. And it's interesting because I see it with my students a lot at the college, where they don't have a plan of attack. They haven't done it long enough to be able to think about a process and how they want to approach an issue. And so they'll just sort of grab at random things and they'll fixate on, well, this connector, but for no reason. There's no testing behind it. There's no real reason behind it. They're just like, I know this is part of the system. I'm zeroing in on this thing and we need to replace this or whatever. But it's very similar to what you see out in the field with the kind of, shops that you're talking about, where there's nothing behind what they're replacing besides the fact that they know it exists in the car and maybe they know it's related to the system that has
Yeah,
the problem.
there's
Um,
no rhyme, reason, and often no testing had been
yeah, yeah.
done. They looked on Identifix and seen that it had this problem, and this fixed 75, and we're going to do that, and no matter what the cost. Um, literally had one of those this past Monday, and ended up being a problem that somebody else that had been working on the car caused. And there wasn't anything wrong with any parts. It was a 2007 Kia. I've been getting a lot of Kias here lately.
Okay.
And we get a chance to talk about a couple case studies. I'll bring up one I put on the AIN and AutoMD page. But this one was ended up fixing over the phone and for them. But it was a 07 Kia Santa Fe with a 3.3, blowing the ignition fuse in the interior fuse box, and that fuse powers up the 6 coils and 2 ignition condensers. That's it.
Okay.
If you look at a diagram, that's all it's on it. They had looked on Identifix and seen that with that fuse blowing, X amount of people, the top repair was an interior fuse panel. So they put one in.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They didn't test anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just somebody, going off whatever people experience. So put a fuse box in it. Do you think it fixed it?
Probably
No.
not.
No. So the next most common thing was PCM. They put one in. Think it fixed it? Nope.
Nope.
But the PCM's not even on that fuse. It's not even related. So then, they were kind of lost at that point. And so I said, okay, well, so I pulled up a diagram, and while I'm on the phone with him, I said, I'm going to try to help you right now. So let's take a look at this. And they said they could unplug all 6 ignition coils and the fuse would still blow. I said, okay, the only thing left on this is the ignition condensers that are, on the valve cover areas.
Okay.
And then that's when they said, yeah, we've seen those, and they were kind of busted up, so we just cut the wire and we just hooked that wire straight to the valve cover.
That'll do it.
I said, those capacitors are supposed to have one side of them, the black wire going in, it's supposed to be battery voltage. It's like, okay. Yeah, so you're shorting that circuit to ground. No wonder that fuse is blowing. I said, try this. Go unhook, undo everything that was done, or disconnect those wires, and then check for a short to ground on that. And they did that, and sure enough, the short was gone. The fuse didn't blow anymore. I said, those capacitors need to be there. They need to have battery voltage on one side, and the eyelet is just a mount for them that needs to be there too. So apparently they'd gotten damaged. I don't know if a used engine was put in and just got left that way. But whatever happened, I'd say one of the condensers was shorted from being damaged. Okay. And then they just exacerbated the problem by cutting it off and shorting battery voltage to ground. Yeah. And so they fixed that, and then everything was fine. But it's just have some kind of process. Where's the wiring diagram on this? What was the thought process? And unfortunately, on this one there wasn't one. Yeah. And that was. If everything was that simple, easy to fix, our lives would be a whole lot easier, but unfortunately it's not.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be fantastic if it would be nice and easy if it was that simple, but I don't think we'd enjoy it as much. I think we enjoy the difficult problems too, and the challenging ones. That's what keeps me coming back for more. I know that.
Well, I rambled on about the classes I took at Vision. Did you? I've been trying to keep up with your podcast lately. Did you already go over what classes you took on another episode?
I talked a little bit about it with Tommy. I took the Subaru class with Scott Schotten. That was a really good class. Really enjoyed that a lot. Some really good up-to-date information on some modern Subaru stuff. Some of that related to the whole VVT thing where it changes the learning value in the ECM, and it's permanently burned in there. And I had an episode about it this fall. We moved around some EPROM stuff, but that was really cool to hear the Subaru side of things. Like, here's how all this functions, and here's what you look at. I enjoyed that a lot. Keith Perkins network class, anything from Keith is awesome, and he put on a good class there. That was packed. It was a huge room there. Let's see, what else did I do? I took a key class with Matt Skundrich. That was really good. Learned a lot because I'm still getting into keys, and did a bunch of the leashy, which I have bought some, or I had bought some prior to going, but I really didn't do enough with them to figure it out. But we spent some time, and since then I've been practicing more, and I've gotten much better at it from just spending some time with a lock cylinder on a bench. And I mean, for anybody who wants to learn leashy, that's probably the way to do it. Is just go buy some locks from a junkyard and sit there and just try to pick them on the bench. And it's frustrating, and I was super frustrated in class because me and Ben Varndo, we were sitting there, and we were trying to get this Volkswagen to unlock, and we had the leashy there. And I mean, we were trying, must have been for like 30, 40 minutes. We were trying, and Matt comes over and he's just like, and moves it, and we're just like, ah! And I think he did that twice, and he's kind of showing us what we're doing wrong, and the finesse that you need to have in moving these little arms and the leashy. And eventually it clicked. It made sense that it's all about the springiness of the wafers, and you can overpick them and things that it's not intuitive, but that's why you go to class to learn that stuff. And so I feel like I kind of walked away with that, with a new or growing skill set, which I'm pretty excited about. And then I did the Tech Talks thing where I was actually up front presenting for a part of it. I did a Volkswagen case study that the thing would run until you close the trunk, and then when you close the trunk, the whole vehicle would die. That was a pretty interesting one. So it was just like a little half-hour blurb, the Tech Talks thing. But the highlight of the Tech Talks was Bryn Klein, Rich Falco, Keith Perkins. They did a game show of it was like a version of The Price is Right, but they called it The Diag is Right. And they brought people down from the crowd, and they had prizes, and they had them bidding on tools, and they did a fantastic job. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't get to see any of that. I walked into the room right after it had ended. There was people all around still. I think Keith still had that shirt was.
Sure.
I noticed the logo. It looked like The Price is Right, but I couldn't read exactly what it said on there. But I bet that I'm sure that would have been a lot of fun.
I'm told there's a YouTube video that either is up or is going to be up at some point, because there was a couple people that got recordings of it. So it's definitely worth your time to check it out. Just because he tied it in with a communications case study on a Toyota that was actually really interesting. Like the case study itself would have been interesting, but that they built it in with the game show aspect. It was fantastic, and gave away legit prizes. People donated. Cody donated some pulse sensors. AES Wave donated some stuff, and they were giving away prizes and stuff. It was fun. And then I took John Thornton, some mechanical engine diagnosis Sunday morning, and then the snow hit, and I drove home in a snowstorm and got home at 5:15 a.m. And did you get stuck at the airport?
No, I drove.
Oh, that's right, you drove. Yeah.
Yeah, I drove in 11 and a half hours from East Tennessee, and I had I didn't have any real problems. It's just on the way back, right after I went through St. Louis, somewhere between there and Mount Vernon, Illinois, I got into rainstorms, and it was constant for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And there was one point where it slowed down to like 25, 30 miles an hour on the road. because you couldn't see anything, or you could barely see in front of you, just enough to see the reflection off the lanes, and it had gotten completely dark, and finally got out of that right before Paducah, Kentucky. And I remember pulling off and got gas and took a screenshot of the Weather Channel app, and I was right on the bottom edge of this huge sail. And at that point, I could see the snow on the backside of it around the Kansas City area. So that's when I started hearing about people stuck at the airport.
Oh man, yeah,
that's why I drove. Well,
and good call.
I didn't want to get stuck somewhere.
I think that's what I'm gonna do next time, because once I looked at it from where I'm at in Twin Cities down there, it's only like 6.5 hour drive, and I was like, why? Flying's easy, right? But I was like, man, why not drive? Because now driving home, because I left at somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock at night, because that's when the whole airport thing didn't pan out. And so I'm driving up through the snowstorm all the way through Des Moines, Iowa. And so, again, we could only go like 40 miles an hour. And it didn't seem like anybody down there really could handle driving in the snow very well. Like, it just maybe, I don't know, it doesn't happen as much down there. So the traffic was moving very slowly. And so it turned it into like an 8 or 9 hour drive. But I was like, oh man, next time I am definitely driving, because that whole airport thing was a debacle. And I know some people that got stuck there, and then the worst part about it was they weren't going to do a hotel because it was weather related. Okay, whatever, but they didn't know when the next flight was going to be and if you could get on it the next day. And I had stuff planned on Monday. I'm like, I gotta get home. So rental car it is. And the so the car I rented is a 21 Sorrento. It has some ADAS features which came in very handy. So it has the lane departure warning, right? So you go outside of the lane, it'll beep and vibrate at you and whatever. It also has the lane keep assist, where the camera's going to see those lines, and it keeps it'll actually pull your steering wheel one way or the other, but it does need to see that your hands are placed on the wheel. Like if you take your hands off the wheel, it's going to yell at you that, hey, we're not doing this all by ourselves here. You got to have your hands on the wheel. But man, that last hour of that drive, it's 5:15 a.m. I haven't slept. 9 hour drive. I'm just like, I think that lane keep assist did a lot of the driving for me to get me on that home stretch back to my place. So I was thankful for that. But yeah, that was a haul.
Yeah, as long as that system can see the lines, if there's snow or anything on the ground,
it didn't work with the snow at all.
Yeah,
I had to get to a part where it was clear, because the inclement weather, and that kind of defeats the ADAS stuff. I think that's where the time that it's going to take to get self-driving vehicles like everywhere, that I think snow and rain and inclement weather is going to be one of the biggest obstacles to that. At least from my perspective. I don't build AI or cars, so I don't know, but
that's where we'll start to see more done with, there's already some with the V2V and the V2I and the V2X systems, like vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, and vehicle to whatever else, instead of relying on, purely visual line of sight of a reflective marking or the edge of a road. There's, vehicles are going to be communicating with one another, to buildings, to stoplights. Sure. It's going to change. Everything will be the, DOIP, Ethernet based systems, where it's a whole lot faster, and that's coming. I mean, a lot of that stuff's already here, and a lot of people haven't done anything to prepare for it. So, but it's coming. Mm-hmm. So just. That'll be a big game changer as far as vehicle safety, that we need to have in our mindset, because that's going to change a lot of what we do and how we diagnose vehicles going forward.
Yeah.
Before I lose train of thought, I'm bad about forgetting to do something or mention something. But you were talking about the keys and taking that key class and the leashy stuff.
Sure.
Not to plug a YouTube channel, but if you get a chance to check out, if you haven't already, a page called Lockpicking Lawyer.
Okay. All right.
He's got a lot of good content, and it's pretty amazing to watch how he makes something so complicated or what would seem complicated, it's so easy.
Awesome.
He does a lot of different automotive locks, a lot of home security padlocks like master and stuff. It's supposed to be high security and unpickable. Like 3 seconds, he's got it open, and it's really cool.
Nice.
It'll really make you rethink what you consider or how secure you think your home is and your belongings and stuff that you think are locked up and not going anywhere. It's pretty scary on how poorly some stuff's designed. But it's a good channel to check out.
Yeah. Honestly, even just the leashy stuff, I'm like, wow. Like, that was, once you figure it out, it's like, that's so easy to get into a vehicle. Like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
That's nuts. But, and I don't know. I'm sure this is probably why the locksmiths are, try to keep that stuff close to their chest as much as possible, but that you can just go buy this stuff and it's like, oh man, a lot of the concerns about security and stuff, I get it from that perspective where, a random person could go buy this and watch some YouTube videos and maybe figure it out and then they're into a vehicle,
Yeah, it's double-edged sword. I mean, whether it's considered an honor system or not, information today is so easily attainable that years ago it was very secret. Now it's out in the open, and is hope that it's not used for the wrong purpose.
Right.
Like YouTube, Facebook, anything social media, anything web-based, used for the right reasons is good, and it's very, very helpful. But at the same time, somebody uses it for the wrong thing, it just hurts everybody all around. And I can't stand that when that happens.
Yeah, that's been a debate many times. Is about, even if it's not locksmith stuff, just sharing information and knowledge, what might be considered like inside information or industry knowledge, and putting it out on YouTube or some similar format. YouTube's the common one that people refer to because there's so many users and literally anybody can watch the videos. And it's a debate. I definitely see both sides of it, right? I have used YouTube many times to help me through things, automotive or not. And I'm so glad I have this resource. It's so helpful. But at the same time, yeah, like this might be something I do to earn income. This is my career. This is how I provide a service for someone. And then now it's just out there. How do I do that particular thing? Oh, it's not that hard. You just buy this auto and you do this thing. Okay, now
it's just that easy.
Value, right? Well, that's the thing. It's not always that easy.
That's if somebody said, "Oh, I can do it." Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
I'll have my phone on me. Call me when you need me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go do something else. So we went to Vision. Vision's behind us. That was a great event. I can't wait to go. I can't wait till next year, until we're back there, because that was a great time. It was just really, really fun. I enjoy those events. So what's for you? What training event are you going to next?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I think SPX, or is that what it is? STX.
STX that's going on right now.
If that was like a couple months later, I would have went to that too. I was looking at the training lineup for that and how many classes they have. And I think it's down in Florida. It just looked fantastic, but I couldn't swing going to two in the same month. Like I couldn't make that happen. So that would have been one. So I actually don't have anything planned over the summer. I mean, I'll definitely try to hit up ASTE again in the fall, but between now and then, I'm kind of looking right now. Actually,
doesn't is ASTE registration open yet?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but that's not to be. I mean, I couldn't.
Because if they are, I need to go ahead and sign up because I'm going to that.
Yeah,
again.
Yeah, that one was fantastic. I'm talking with Mike and Pedro about their EPROM class and seeing if they do one up here closer where I'm at in the Twin Cities, Midwest area. But I'm just starting out with that, and that would be late spring, early summer potentially, if that happens. So I guess if anybody's listening, hit me up if you're interested, because we may be looking for candidates. But that'd
definitely be worth going to.
Yeah, they put on. I've been to their class, but it's one of those classes where I'm sure you went to the Vision one. You could go again and probably learn just as much, because there's so much to it, and there's so many things you could go over 2-3 times in that area if you're interested in it.
Now you took the you said when you were at Vision, you took the Subaru class, and the EPROM deal with the learned cam values.
Yeah.
Have you had any further insight on what what blocker or what part of the EPROM houses that information? Is there a particular one, like a 2 or 4 little blocks of that EPROM read that you could zero out or change to a certain value to refresh it?
All I can say there is that it's being worked on, I guess, is the best way I can put that. I don't have any definitive answers, or I'm probably, in all honesty, not the guy that's going to be able to tell you that, but I got connected with some people and there's things in the works. So my hope is eventually that, there is a fix for that you can go in and just type something up and you're good to go. But as of right now, no. It's one of those things where I'd like to have several more known goods and known bads, right? So that I can compare. And then that hex data, it's gibberish. So sorting through it is interesting, trying to figure that stuff out. And that's where I've been talking to some other people that understand that stuff a little bit better. And it's funny you say that. I was talking to somebody about that today, and they were telling me all these things about checksums and equations done within this data, and it's far more complex than my understanding is on it. But there's got to be a way to fix it. I know that, right? Because I copy and paste the whole file and it fixes it. So there's got to be a little section that
you're on the right track. We're in this area to narrow it down.
Exactly. I tried swapping sections. I tried dividing the EPROM into different sections and just pasting in sections, but I wasn't able to figure it out. And I only tried about 3 times because it's a bit of a time-consuming process to do that. Yeah. And I just kind of gave up. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm probably going to break something. So, but hey, interesting stuff. Once you get into the details on this, it's also interesting that Subaru hasn't come out with something too. That this is clearly a problem based on the Subaru class that I took. They're fully aware of it. They have a service bulletin, and they just say replace the ECM, and they're not terribly expensive. In all honesty, I think they're like $300-400. So, end of the day,
at that point, it's a guaranteed fix.
Yeah, exactly.
But what happens when they're not available?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And if you had a fix for this, you could yank the glove box, pull the ECM, pop a couple clips, hook up with the EPROM, change some data. This is maybe an hour's worth of work, and you could charge half of what a new ECM cost. You'd be making out like a bandit, and they'd be happy, and we're saving modules. And I mean, it's a possibility, that's for sure.
I know a lot of people that would change the same, or they would charge the same as what what a new ECM would be.
Yeah.
But if if a new module is not available, or it's 2-3 weeks out, or galactic back order, and it's not coming anytime soon, the customer needs that vehicle back. Well, okay, you can pay. I can charge this amount now and have it done here in an hour, or you can wait X amount of months. It makes no difference to me. You let me know what you want me to do. So, but I think that's going to be something that's going to be more and more common, and I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. And I've been collecting modules like crazy from shops where I'm replacing one or see one laying around. Hey, do you need that? Is it any good? Is there anything wrong with it? If I know it's broken, then at the minimum I can use it to continually practice, soldering and desoldering, soldering skills. Hot air station, find ways to make that process easier for me and more efficient, and always maintain accuracy. So there's it's perfect training, a training opportunity to picking these things up and getting them out of their way. I can use them. They're not going back on a car.
You have a hot air station?
I've got one. I have yet to break it up and set it up though, because I haven't taken the time to. Just been been very, very busy. But
I was going to ask a recommendation because I'm looking for one right now. There's so many out there. I don't even really know what's good and what's bad.
I think the one I got, I got it on Amazon, is like $45, $50. I already had a decent soldering station that works well for me, and I can't remember the name. I don't think it's UA or anything like that. It's some you can tell it's definitely a Chinese name.
Sure.
But I got to break it out and see how well it works, and just get used to it. And I like in the EPROM class, I had never looked for any of the tips that are the 4 squares or the sections for the the 4-sided chips, and that was something new to me. So I'm going to get some of those hot air tips for mine. I think they're pretty universal, and you can get them on Amazon pretty cheap.
What do those go on? Those go on the
end of the hot air gun.
Okay.
Instead of having just a single round outlet, like if you're trying to get a 4-sided chip, 2-sided, 4-sided chip off, there's different sizes. So let's say it's a 1-inch chip and it's got legs on all 4 corners. Well, this is going to direct air to the 4 sides right over the legs without feed a bunch of temperature onto the MCU part of it, and that stays nice and chill. Direct all the heat to the legs, and then have your tweezers ready to pull that chip up.
Dang, okay. I didn't know that existed either. That's pretty cool. Tommy was telling me last week about some hot tweezers where I think it's just 2 soldering irons and you can operate them as a tweezer. So I was like, you don't even know some of this stuff exists. So you talk to people, and
I had honestly hadn't seen those until they broke them out, and just the fact that in a matter of seconds pulling an 8-leg EPROM chip off, wow, how have I not seen this before?
Yep.
Where are you hiding these secrets?
Exactly. Yep.
You said you don't have any maybe some training later this year. Next week, I'm actually going down to Ocala, Florida, to the Electrified Garage. Okay. Have you heard of it? It's from my understanding is all they deal with is electric vehicles. A lot of Tesla stuff, a lot of custom conversions. They've got their own YouTube channel, shop tours, stuff they work on. A guy that his channel is called Rich Rebuilds. He's got some good content on there. I'm going for a 2-day class. It's on Thursday, Friday of next week, and I'm curious to see what all's going to be there for in that time. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be something completely different.
Yeah, that's awesome. I need to do some more electric vehicle and hybrid car training myself.
This from what I understand, this is full electric.
Okay.
nothing hybrid. I don't think they touch anything that they use as gasoline, unless I'm mistaken. But I
I'm
think
just
all they deal
scoffing
with
at all
is
those Chevy Volt owners. There's still an engine in there.
yeah. One video they had, they were doing a shop tour, and it was um, like a uh, like not an actual Lambo, but one of the kit cars, and had a full Tesla powertrain.
Nice.
Um, I thought that was pretty cool.
Um, Seth
There's
Thorson up here, he did that with I think it was a ProMaster van, I'm pretty sure it was it was a ProMaster, where they put a Tesla drivetrain into the front of this thing. So it's a fully electric van. That's crazy.
it was it was an art it was a magazine article. It was a really cool video attached, but it was an old wasn't a Cuda, I don't think. It was an old an old muscle car, but instead of a gas engine, this thing was fully electric, and he did what was called a no cut build, where nothing was modified on the vehicle. Wasn't cut and hacked to pieces. Everything was designed to be bolt together style, even into the dash. Um, there was nothing modified on the interior that if you took it apart that you'd be able to tell otherwise. But it
That's
was
cool.
really really nicely done, and just fully electric. There was one that Jay Leno did, where Ford Performance had the Mach-E GT drivetrain in a 79 F100 F150 custom,
Hmm.
and it was just so much cool technology and what's being done. I mean, that's going to be where this whole performance industry and automotive, it's just going to be more and more common. It's where we're headed.
Yeah.
So, but for now, um, we're still focusing on, we got plenty of broke cars and stuff that goes bang, and I'm sure you and I have ran into here lately some good vehicles that have been broken that somebody needed our help with, right?
Yes. I've been doing a lot of programming lately. Trying to think of recently what's been really interesting. If you got one, go for it. I'm trying to actually think. I had one in mind, and I'm having a brain fart here. But if you
Yeah,
got
sure.
any, go for it.
While you're thinking of that one, um, for the people listening to this, if they're on either the AIN Automotive Inside Network or the AutoMD pages on Facebook, a couple weeks ago, I think it's about maybe 3 weeks ago now. Not two. I put up a post about a vehicle that I went and looked at for a shop. It was I got my Think car here in front of me. What was this thing? It was 2009 Kia Sorento, 2005. Sorry.
Okay.
And they called me up asking, wanting me to come look at it, and just gave me the rundown. This thing it had the cannon fired at it, and it was still broke. It said it just wouldn't. Their claim was that it wouldn't take gas. Like,
Okay.
okay, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, park and neutral. They said it'll rev up fine, and then when you go into gear, it just doesn't go anywhere. Um, it won't move. I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. So then they started naming off the parts that had been put on it. Um, they tried throttle position sensor. They tried a mass airflow meter. Um, Tried all four oxygen sensors. They even gutted the cats on this thing. Um, it had all new plugs, new coils, new spark plug wires. This is a system where it's a way spark, 3 coils and 3 plug wires.
Okay.
It got the tune up, no misfires. It just didn't have any power, wouldn't go anywhere. And I think I want to say that's all of the parts they put on. I could be missing one or two, but just firing everything at this, hoping something sticks, and nothing did. And went out to it, and this was back on, about 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Initial scan, there's only 3 modules on the vehicle. In the ECM, it had a intake air temp sensor circuit high fault, PO113, and a PO102 mass airflow low input. Now, typically when I see those code sets, because somebody had the mass airflow sensor unplugged, and it has both the meter and the IAT.
Sure.
That's usually when I see those code set. And that was the only, engine performance related faults on here. And they showed as present codes, but everything worked like it should. So I don't think that the present value is actually correct, because the intake air temp read normal. It read actual air, ambient air, and the mass airflow sensor was working. So that was something I noted right up front in the initial scan of it. So I did my normal thing, grab the scan tool, create a pre-scan report. So I'll make a record before I touch anything, and then go from there. And even though they mentioned they replaced all these parts, that really doesn't matter to me. It doesn't change my process. I still have my routine I go through.
Yep.
Like I've told people for years, you got to have your routine. You got to stick to it. You got to do it the same way every time. And where I try to get people's attention is, it's asking an off-ball question. Well, what leg do you put in your pants first? Because a lot of people never think about it.
Yeah.
Like, which leg goes in your pants first? I don't know. I just put my pants on. Well, tomorrow morning, pay attention. And, so I do my left leg first, and then my right leg goes in, and, hopefully that'll work, one than the other. And I had one guy say, well, no, I'll put them both in, just jump up and pull them up. Okay, go for it.
Do what you got to
do. The point of that is, if you have a routine, be aware of what your routine is. And then I said, okay, you put your left leg in first. Okay, put your pants on, take them back off, and then do it backwards. Is it going to feel the same? Is it going to feel right? And it won't. It's going to feel weird. So, and the whole point of that is, if you follow a diagnostic process that you do the same way every time, your results usually be consistent. But when you skip your process, when you forget about that and try to do something completely different that you're not used to, it's going to feel odd. So have a routine that's effective, and do it the same way every time. That way you don't miss things, and your results are consistent. So that's what I did. Pre-scan on this, and when some data, I seen that initially at a war model of 640 RPM, this thing's pulling 7.5 over 8 grams per second of air on a 3.5 liter little V6. That ain't right.
Right.
That can't be right. However, fuel trims at this point, short terms around 0, long terms on one bank was -7, but the other is showing at 0. So no major fuel correction.
Okay.
And the all the data looked okay, other than the mass airflow rate being really high.
Sure.
I did note it wasn't surging, like it had a huge vacuum leak, or it had like an overrich or a lean condition. It's not like it had a fuel control issue. It's like whatever it's doing, it was kind of content with.
Okay.
So, but I did notice on a snap throttle was really sluggish to accelerate. It's like, well, okay, well, I'll take that into consideration. And so next thing I did was I just let it run and made sure that I had pretty stable data readings. And after a minute or so letting that run, that's where I stopped. And I didn't have any cam crank faults. So I really wasn't worried about it, but I wanted to prove that everything was right, just in case this, wasn't setting fault for whatever reason. So I grabbed the Pico, hooked up a couple channels on this engine. It couldn't really be any easier to get to the cam crank sensors. Two sensors, they're right up front on the top in the middle. Just back probe and you're good to go. So grab those cam crank waveforms and then compare to a known good file that I had, and they're right on the money. The way I believe it was on the cam sensor, the way it split the gaps in the crank sensor waveform was right in the middle, and that's the exact same that the known good was. So I wasn't worried about cam crank correlation, which explains why I had no codes. It's like, okay, well, I'm not worried about that. But it just, kind of felt like, in a way, a breathing problem, but then the fuel trim data didn't support that. So my next step was to, I always like to do a relative compression test when I'm doing a performance-related issue.
For sure.
To see, do I have, since I didn't have any misfires, it wasn't running rough, I wasn't worried about a dead hole. I wanted to see, one, how much compression did this thing have, represented by starter amperage, and then two, sync in ignition to see when that's happening, because this kind of fit a scenario that I've seen multiple times before, and that's kind of where my mind was taking me. So as soon as I seen the relative compression pattern and then the ignition event happening after the peak, ignition happening after top dead center, I felt pretty confident I was thinking right. So
if you're looking at the peak of a compression tower on the waveform, the spark line would be to the right of it as you're looking at the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's top dead center. Well, I usually relate TDC to the peak amperage. Now there's some debate. It's not always the case. That's just peak resistance of when that happens. So ignition happened after the peak resistance or the peak starter load event, which we're used to it happening slightly before when ignition timing event. So I'm like, okay, this is fitting more and more. So I decided to go to number one cylinder, because the problem that was present was spread across all cylinders instead of an individual bank. So I grabbed the number one plug, was easy to get to. It's a single wire, pop it out, go in cylinder with a transducer. Kept my other signals attached, so I had ignition sync, cam and crank, and in cylinder pressure waveform, and then one capture. Later, I was ready to call it. You see the entire intake and exhaust valve events shifted over to the right. Exhaust valve didn't open until after bottom dead center. Then it rises up to atmospheric. That's with the engine running. And then it was about 20, 30 degrees or so after top dead center of when that waveform finally fell and went into what we consider a normal intake stroke. And then after bottom dead center, the amount of time that lapsed between bottom dead center to where pressure actually started building in the cylinder was about that same amount, about 20 to 30 degrees. I think it was around like 18 if I remember the measurement right.
Okay.
But everything was shifted to the right. Ignition shifted to the right. Valve event shifted to the right. And the only thing on that could have caused it was a partially sheared or bent keyway. And it turned out that there were signs that somebody had been there before. It had, when the shop tore it down, the timing belt was fairly new, and somebody had just reused the old crank bolt. It's a one-time use. Torque to yield. You try to tighten again.
What was the motor in this one again?
3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah. So if that bolt is reused, it will stretch. It'll lose its tension, and then you no longer have that compression force between the bolt to balancer to crank sprocket to crank snout, and so that crank sprocket is just slapping back and forth, and that slot's going to open up, and it's going to either bend or partially shear, eventually completely shear that keyway. Then it becomes a no start.
Yep.
So we caught it just in time that the keyway was bent, but the crank sprocket was okay. I told them I was there no more than I think like 30 minutes
Okay.
on this one, and they've been fighting it for a couple of weeks. So at that point, I remember, of course, I save everything I do. My my initial what time was this? Yeah, from the time I took the first picoscope recording to the time I took the last one was 19 minutes apart. And most of that time in between was just looking up wiring diagrams and looking up other data, making sure I wasn't missing anything, and making sure that I was heading in the right direction. I was standing outside in the rain and sprinkling a little bit, but I wasn't stressing. I had a workflow that I was going through, and it turned out for the good in this case. And going into it, what seemed like it should have been a hard find, just it came down to knowing how to understand and interpret data that were given by an oscilloscope and by some squiggly lines on the screen, and that one turned out really good. And I think that really solidified the relationship I have with that shop, and they don't, they're not. I hope they don't really question anything that I do if if I say it in full confidence. And I think that's kind of what we're all after.
Yeah. Well, and you're there 19 minutes, but of course it's all the time and effort you put in behind the scenes that allowed you to do that in the 19 minutes.
There's several years of effort behind those 19 minutes.
Yes. and people don't always see or understand that, but that's the truth of it. If you can, make those assessments and you understand how to capture the waveforms and how to analyze the waveforms and how the engine works, and there's so much that goes into all of that to make it a quick, neat little package. But like what Tommy was talking about last week too, like you got to charge accordingly for that, regardless of how quickly, or maybe in that instance, how easy it is for somebody to do that. Like it's quality work, and it should demand a quality price. I mean, that's the I like that. I like that case study though. That's good. I've seen a couple of those sheared keyways in the past on various vehicles. I was thinking of one that was a 2.4 in a Kia a long time ago. It was actually my brother's car, but yeah.
That can happen on a lot of engines, and I've got a little collection of bent keyways, and I remember the first time I ever ran into that was. I was fairly new. I was very, very new to the oscilloscope then. This was probably about probably 11 years ago, somewhere around there. It was on a Mazda Miata, and that was the first time I really ran into a sheared keyway or a bent keyway, and that was the learning point. That really turned me to, I got to pay more attention. I got to find a better or an easier way to do this. And there's always something to learn.
Yeah.
And
no kidding.
Going from, I think it was the same. Was it the same? Yeah, it was the same day. I went from that call to an individual's house. There's a car that his son or son-in-law works at a Chrysler dealer. This was where was this thing? Was a 2007 Chrysler 300. Okay. And it had, transmission wouldn't shift. It would slam into gear really hard where it's going to reverse, neutral drive, or reverse or drive. And it just, you could go you could drive it out of the driveway, but it's stuck in the first gear. It won't upshift. And by the time I got called out to it, or they called me, they got my number from another person. They already tried a new TCM from eBay. or a used TCM, and nothing changed. And I don't know I can't remember what all else they done, but it'd been down a while. I don't know if they've done much to it. It's just been one of those things that set for a long time. Maybe 4 or 5 months it's been sitting there dead. And, through the testing, went straight, grabbed the wiring diagram, and there's a single power and a single ground for this module, and check for power at it, no power. It had ground, but no power. So going back to the PDC, the power distribution center in the trunk, power comes in to relay, then a fuse, then the module. Well, on the fuse, I had no power either with the vehicle running.
Mm-hmm.
So the fuse wasn't being powered up. Pulled the fuse out, checked it, no power at that, so it wasn't blown or anything. And then went to the TCM relay, and wasn't hot. There was no heat. Pulled it out. It didn't unclick like a relay turning off.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped it back in the slot. There was nothing. Verified it had terminal 30 power. It had the switch power from the ECM to turn on. It had a constant ground. I think for 85 was ground, 86 switch power, 30 is constant power, and then 87 is load side. It had everything it needed. So I grabbed another relay out of what was labeled as the rear seat heaters, popped it in. As soon as I dropped it in enough, I felt it click. So pulled out, and sure enough, cycled a couple times, and then plugged it back in. And originally had no communication with the TCM. That's what somebody else had looked at it, so they couldn't talk to the TCM. That's why they got one. But I verified that problem, but looking on the scan report, there is no TCM on this list, and I'm staring right at it, so I know it has it. But no, after that, went back in, redid the scan. It showed it had the TCM had a code stored in it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was shown as a passed code. Cleared the code, cycled through the gears, and it shifted just fine. It was fixed.
Nice.
And all over a failed relay. Nobody,
Wow.
I guess whoever worked on it forgot to, verify it had power to work.
Yeah, that's just sometimes it's the simplest stuff. And I was racking my brain, thinking of an interesting case study lately when you first asked there. And I'm just thinking, most of this stuff ends up being pretty simple, right? At least the fix, right? It's not like, oh wow, this is some intricate, interesting thing that happened. Yeah, it's a relay or an open wire or a fuse. Or I had a parasitic draw the other day that somebody had flipped the lighting switch in the wrong direction. And I couldn't believe it. It was so simple. I'm like, did we not check for this? What's the deal? It's the interior dimmer switch was on, and they called me in for this. I'm like, did you guys even look at this? It's just staring you in the face, literally. But yeah, I guess it all goes back to that testing process. I did have an interesting one. This is actually a few weeks ago. It was F-150 with the Triton 5.4. So super, super common for all kinds of issues with that engine.
I love that engine. I just started my career out with Ford right out of tech school when that engine came out. So I learned that engine is where I cut my teeth, and I learned a lot. I'm so thankful that Ford made that engine because it's paid a lot of my mortgage.
Yeah, no.
But go ahead.
Well, I'm equally as happy for the 6L80s recently. But so it was misfire. Shot me was a misfire. Had done the normal stuff: coil, plug, swap injector. Didn't get rid of this misfire, and I'm trying to remember if they told me if they did a compression test or not. And I right now at this moment, I don't remember if they said they did a compression test or not on this thing. But had they done a compression test, it actually would have came back okay, or within the normal range. So I get there, and it's definitely misfiring. It's like a dead hole. It is cylinder number 1, 2, 3. So that's driver's side, third one back, because they count 1, 2, 3 on one bank, and they go 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 on the driver's side. So, anyways, it was 3 back, and it was misfiring. Okay, cool. So let's look at this. Let's get into it. And again, spark looks good, fuel looks good. It's all there. Now, when I crank this thing, it sounds really, really good as far as the compression goes. Audibly, sounds great, everything. And relative compression kind of shows the same thing, where it's good cranking. Well, if you start it up, again, it's misfiring. And what I did is I went in cylinder, which, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I got to order the adapter for my WPS that goes into the different, they have a different spark plug thread on those 5.4s. It's like a different course
it's
or something.
It's a 16 millimeter.
Yeah. So, anyways, I
can help you out with that. Just let me know.
I just need to remember to do it. I had told myself I was going to order one, and I never did. So I'm going to write that down right now.
Okay. I'll put it on your needs list.
Anyways, I went in cylinder. I had to borrow an adapter and makeshift something so I could get in there. But I went in cylinder with the WPS just because I wanted to see what's happening with the cylinder. Because everything looks okay as far as cranking compression goes, and far as injector and spark, and that's all there. But it's a dead hole. Like, there's no doubt when this thing's running, it's missing. And so I go in cylinder, and as it's running, I got like almost no compression. It's like this tiny little bump on the waveform, and I'm questioning, did I hook something up right? Is my ranges set correctly? And it was. There was no compression on this thing once it was running. Now, again, cranking, it was pretty good. It would show cranking, and you could crank it for a while too. I think the longest I tried was maybe somewhere between, I don't know, 8 to 10 seconds, but it had cranking compression. But the WPS would show almost no compression once this thing was running. And I thought that was really strange that it could build adequate compression while it was cranking, but not while it was running. And I was going through the list of things in my head. Okay, well, what could this be? It's obviously not like a piston or something like that. It's got to be valve train related somehow or another. And I'm pretty familiar with the setup on these. I'm sure you are too. You got the lifters, and you got the little rockers and everything that are trapped underneath the overhead camshaft on this thing. And I was like, well, maybe there's an issue with one of the lifters themselves here. It's not like a rocker's falling out, because again, it can build adequate compression, like, and no problem doing so cranking. But I told him, I was like, let's pull the valve cover, and then let me know what you end up finding. I have a feeling you'll find your issue here, because it's gonna be valve train related. Now, what I should have done on this, and I didn't hook up the intake pulse sensor. Looking back on it, I actually wish I would have, because I think I might have been able to find out, or at least see what was going on here. Anyways, they pulled it the next day, and it was just a broken valve spring, right? So easy enough to fix. Now, it was interesting, though, because this has 2 intake valves on this thing, right? And so it was one of the intake valves that had the broken valve spring. And I thought it was really odd that it was able to build the compression cranking at a slower engine speed, but then it would seem to drop off almost completely once it was running. And I don't know if it just had to do with the timing of the valve closing and the speed of the engine, if that was where the correlation was, but it definitely made it so it was not able to build a compression, and it was a misfire running, but cranking, it was slow enough going that it was able to seal. That's my best guess anyways as to why that was, but the valve springs fixed it either way.
Yeah, if that volume of air was, well, obviously your volume of air cranking is going to be different. It's going to be higher. I mean, it could apply enough force to push that valve up against the seat and seal off and give the impression that it's good.
Okay. Yeah, that may be the case, is that it was actually assisting the broken spring in a way.
Yeah. I would say that's probably what was most likely what was going on. and causing that variable. Yeah, but I've seen a lot of the followers, the cam follower rollers will lock up, and then it just ends up gouging out the cam lobe. Or you'll have like the outside profile of the cam lobe will still have the ears, but then like the center part of the lobe where the roller follows on, it's just gouged out. It's trenched. And at that point, you got all that metal that's been flowing through the engine. That thing's trashed at that point.
I'm going to send you a picture right now on Facebook Messenger of this thing going to... So on the left of the screen, just for everybody listening, because I know it's an audio-only podcast, I'm looking at a WPS on a Pico. On the left of the screen, cranking, we are showing 170 plus PSI of compression. And then you can see as this thing starts, and it just goes, boom, all the way down to building almost no compression. But the odd thing was that you could crank it for a significant amount of time and get that good compression over and over and over again. So like I was saying at the beginning, had they put a gauge in here and cranked it traditional, it would have showed great compression in this thing, or at least adequate. I mean, I don't know what spec is on one of these Fords off the top of my head. Maybe you do, but I wouldn't be upset with 170 plus.
No, generally I think 130 to 150 at least is passing, and you would have above that. So that'd be enough to pass for sure. Just trying to bring that picture up. My internet's slow out here right now, but
yeah,
that's a good one. I love that 543 valve and a 6.0 Power Stroke. Give me one of them any day. I'll take it.
For sure. Yeah, there's those certain vehicles, certain motors that make you a lot of money. It was the GM 3.1s and the 3.4s when I was a tech. Man, I did so many intake manifolds and head gaskets on those things. It was ridiculous. I had that down to a science. I'd take those, it was a push rod motor, these 3.1s and 3.4s, and I'd rip the valve covers off. I'd yank the push rods out through the valve covers without taking the intake off, yank the head bolts, and I'd have somebody help me, and I'd lift both heads and the intake manifolds and exhaust all off the engine as one, set it over on the table, and then I'd rip it apart on the table. And you could have one of these engines apart, like down to the head gaskets within under 2 hours easily. But it was just because we did them so often, right? That's the thing. It's like repetition, and you kept going over and over and over again, and you eventually figure out that flow. But yeah, those things make a ton of money as a tech.
I'm looking at that picture right now, and that is one crazy waveform.
Yeah, so you see on the zoom window where I was cranking it before I actually started it?
Yeah, you got looks like at least 3 pulses in that are even, and they match your initial one.
And you could do that for a decent amount of time, and then you start it, and then it's nothing. It's gone completely.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's a good capture.
Yeah.
Definitely hang on to that one.
Like I said, I should have done the intake pulse, because I was talking to somebody else about it, and they were like, well, where's the intake pulse capture? I'm like, I should have hooked that up for that one, but I'm still consistently learning with that intake pulse waveform. The John Thornton class was very helpful to get some insight onto that, but I've definitely struggled with that one to read into it. Like, what's that little pulse mean? Or I would expect it to be low or high here, and it's not, and so it's kind of it's one of those things you get repetition, like secondary ignition, just repetition, and eventually you get better at it.
And for those listening, if you want probably the best resources to learn pulse sensor usage, it's either going to be Thornton or Steckler.
Yes, definitely.
It's going to be the 2 avenues to go down to get some information from these guys. It was an online course, a book, whatever, anything you can grab from on the subject. They're going to be probably going to be the king of getting you in the right direction on that subject.
Yeah, Brandon's got.
That's
some
my
awesome
opinion
stuff.
anyway.
Yeah, no, Brandon has a really, really good book, which I'm pretty sure you can purchase online. I'm pretty sure you can, but
yeah, AES Web sells the print book and the ebook too.
they sell a lot of good stuff. It's good to meet those people at Vision too,
Oh,
Carlos and everybody. That was
yeah,
pretty cool.
They're tremendous people. They definitely have a heart for the industry and us technicians doing this stuff, and they do a lot for us more than a lot of people realize. So I have no problem backing them, supporting them, and saying very kind things about them. They're awesome people.
Yeah, same here. I was working to try to get them as a sponsor for the podcast. I haven't made any progress with that yet, though, so I'm gonna keep trying.
Okay. So what else? I have another. Oh, well, this is a little fun fact here.
Okay.
It's not really a case study, but this was the first time I had ran into it. Got a call from a body shop. They had just replaced or straightened a left rear quarter panel, and put a tail light in a 2020 Jeep Gladiator. Now this is a Jeep Wrangler truck, kind of like the old Scrambler,
Sure.
the old CJ8 Scramblers with four doors. That's all they did. They didn't replace anything other than a tail light and straighten a quarter panel. Well, they had they did have some lights on, and some collision messages, some warning indicators. And when I went out there, did the scan, it had a bunch of faults for the that was in the BCM for the left rear tail lamp, or left tail lamp. Oh, sorry. And turns out when I scanned it, I didn't look at the back, but the tail light wasn't plugged up. And as soon as it plugged it up, did clear those faults, and then reran the report. And the only fault that came back was a left was a left tail lamp control circuit short. Is that the right one? No, sorry. Had the only code that was setting was a B1642-15 for rear left turn lamp control circuit short to battery or open. Anytime on these vehicles, these newer ones that have the body control module controlled circuits, if the key is powered on and something is disconnected, bulbs burned out, or something is unplugged, you'll have fault codes like this set. The only way on this, when we look up the workflow on this code, the only way that code will clear out, that'll pass and be able to clear out, is when the ignition's powered on and then the turn signal is operated for at least 20 seconds.
Okay.
So all I had to do was they called me to come program a blind spot sensor or a blind spot monitor or module on this one, because it's got a module that's part of the tail light.
Yeah, I just ran into that F-150 the other day.
That's what the whole call was about. Well, that one, I try to tell them, look, it's plug and play. There's nothing to program. Well, we got these warning messages on, so I drove up there, and it was like a 40-minute drive, and I got up there, and all I had to do basically was operate a turn signal switch. And that's it. And then the codes were gone. I was done. So that was an easy one. But it also had, the whole point of that saying is look in service info, because this one is an easy fix. You can't clear that code out with a scan tool. It's kind of like the old the permanent codes. It's going to be there until a module is satisfied with something being operated, there's parameters that have to complete and pass before it allow the code to be cleared. And this was one of them. It just a minimum 20 seconds of operating the turn signal. And after that, that was done.
Yeah.
It also had an indicator on the cluster for the forward collision warning system, but the light or the indicator was for the system being turned off. And this one had the center stack or the Uconnect system, where you can turn that system on or off through like the radio area.
Okay.
And all I had to do was went in there and I showed the shop owner how to turn it back on, and then the light went off. So it's not that anything was wrong. That's just showing that this is turned off. And I guess I don't know if it defaulted to being that way when they were servicing it, or if it may have come in that way. They don't know. But also the same vehicle, somebody had intentionally unplugged one of the underhood or the hood switches. This has switch 1 and switch 2.
Okay.
And it had a fault code for a P152E engine hood switch 2 circuit high. It'd been unplugged for a while, and that prevents start-stop from working. And there was when you start the vehicle up, there was a start-stop system disabled message that would come up on the cluster. And I once I connected those two dots, I just let him know, look, somebody's intentionally done this prior to you having it. It came in that way, and we'll just leave it that way. Nice. So that was, but the whole point of that one was about the tail lamp. I mean, all it took was 20 seconds of turn signal function, and it was happy.
Yeah.
Instead of a drive cycle, just turn the turn signal switch on.
So if it's a BMW, they would never fix that code, is what you're saying.
It would never get fixed. It just don't leave the light on. Leave the light on. It'll be all right.
Oh man. Well, we just did 2 hours just like that, man.
Man, it's flown by. Hey, it's been a blast. It's fun. Hopefully, I sound okay being on these. Last time we chatted, I had a really bad. I just got over a sinus infection. I still had a little bit of a head cold, sound stuffy, but I just sound bad all the time. I'm sorry. But I love to chat, and I love getting to have these discussions, and it was great seeing you again at Vision. And,
definitely.
And everybody else, and had a good time. And yes, I always try to encourage people in the industry to never stop training and always continue to better yourself and try to learn something new every day, or maybe not every day, just once a week. So, challenge yourself in some way to want to be better the next day than you are today. And if you're still in the same spot a year from now that you were today, that's your fault. So get on the path to bettering yourself and be the best you can be out in this industry, because it's constantly changing. The moment we learn something, we're already behind, and we're always playing catch up. So if somebody has the attitude of I always want to learn, always want to grow, always want to be better, then you'll fit right in this industry. But if you don't have that, then
it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy what I get to do, and I enjoy meeting people like you and everybody else at these shows and training events, and getting to network. And these pages are great. I think, like I mentioned before, last time we talked, I wish we had that stuff, or this type of stuff, 15 or when I was starting 18 years ago in the industry. And
no kidding.
I can't imagine where I potentially could be if that had been the case.
Exactly. Yeah. So take advantage of everything that's out there and everybody that's willing to share. But likewise to you. It's awesome to meet people like you and get to have 2 hour conversations about this stuff. That's pretty
2
cool.
hours, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I appreciate you having me out again, and I really enjoy it. Look forward to next time. And
well, yeah, we didn't even get to one of the topics we were going to talk about, so there'll have to be a next time.
Yeah, that's always another conversation we can have. Just anytime you want to, just let me know. I'm always up for it.
Okay, one more big thank you to Daryll for joining me on the show today. I really enjoyed getting to sit down and talk with him. Just basically be car nerds. That's a lot of fun for me. Hey, if that's you as well, you like these discussions and you'd like to have one of these, you want to be on the podcast, just hit me up. Shoot me a message on Facebook or email, which you can find in the show notes of this episode. And if you're passionate about what you do in this field, I want to talk to you. We'll get you on the show. All right. Well, with that all out of the way, let's all get out there and start fixing the world one car at a time.
Yeah.